afternoon, students. Welcome to our biology classes. Today's topic that we will going to discuss for your upcoming examinations and also will be useful for your competitive examinations, cell biology. So to understand cell biology, we first need to understand what a cell is, how the cell was discovered, and also what are the components of the cell and the types of cell, and what can we do in life with cell biology, its applications. So coming to the first part of the topic, what is a cell? All living things that we see around us are made up of cells. Like a wall is made up of tiny bricks, or our footpath is paved by stones. Similarly, our body is made up of cells. No matter how small the body part is or how large it is, how small the organism is or how large the organism is, everything living is made up of cell. Starting from a tiny bacteria to the blue whale, everything is made up of cell. So, to understand what a cell is, we need to think of it as the basic structural and functional unit of life. Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. What do we mean by structural unit and functional unit? By means of structural unit, cells are the building blocks of organisms. Me, you, everything, a tiny plant to a big elephant, everything, since they are made up of cells, cells make up our basic structure. They give us form, they give us shape, they give us a structure. And by functional unit, we mean that whatever functions a living organism executes, a cell also executes similar functions. We know living organisms executes the function of movement. A cell also moves with its special locomotory organs. We also know a living organism breathes or it undergoes respiration. A cell also undergoes respiration. We know a living organism reproduces. A cell also reproduces. A living organism requires food to sustain itself. A cell also needs food to sustain itself, and since we all have a digestive system, cells also have methods to process that food. It's homologous to digestion. So this is how a cell can be a structural unit and a functional unit of life. Now coming back to the point of cells, we need to look who discovered the first cell. Robert Hooke first observed dead cells of a cork under the microscope. Now to observe cells, we need an instrument, and that is the microscope. A microscope was first discovered by Hans and Zacharias Janssen. So cell was first observed by, or we can say discovered by, Robert Hooke, and first microscope was discovered by Hans Zacharias Janssen. However, the father of microscopy is Leeuwenhoek, is Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Robert Hooke first discovered dead cells, but Anton von Leeuwenhoek first observed living cells under a microscope designed by Hans and Zacharias Janssen. So, this is the history of cell biology. This is how we first came to know about cells. Now, since everything is made up of cells, we can assume, or there is a common notion, that everything we see around us is cellular, that is made up of cells. But there are a few criteria that needs to be fulfilled so that an organism can be called as cellular. If an organism does not follow those aforementioned criteria, they are said to be acellular. So what are the criteria? Criteria to be called as cellular was laid down by three scientists: Matthias Schlitten, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolf Virchow. They postulated three things. Matthias Schlitten and Theodor Schwann postulated that every living organism is made up of cells. Plants are made up of plant cells, animals are made up of animal cells. They also postulated that cells give the basic structural and functional support to life, or cells are the basic structural and functional units. Now, another scientist, Rudolf Virchow, added another postulate to this theory. He said, omni cellula e cellula. So, if we can write down all these steps, first, every organism is made up of cells. Cells are the basic structural and functional unit of life. These two were given by Schlitten and Schwann. Now the third point was given by Rudolf Virchow. He said, omni cellula e cellula. Omni cellula e cellula. This is a Latin phrase meaning every cell arises from a pre-existing cell. These 3 points are collectively known as cell theory. Those organisms or entities who follow all the 3 points of the cell theory are said to be cellular. But there are a few life forms. Those do not follow the cell theory. They are termed as acellular. An example being virus. Viruses are something in between the living and the dead. When a virus is in your body, it can act as a cell. It performs all the three functions of the cell theory. But the moment it is outside an organism, the moment it is outside the host, it is just like a speck of dust. It acts as a crystal, nothing more than that, just like a grain of dust, and it does not follow the cell theory. So, a virus is acellular because it does not follow the cell theory throughout its life. But a bacteria, a blue whale, humans, plants, they all follow all the 3 points of the cell theory. Hence, they are said to be cellular. Now, we shall look into the types of cells that we need to study. Broadly, we can classify cells as prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Now, what is a prokaryotic cell and what is an eukaryotic cell? Starting from the name, pro means primitive and karyon means cell. So, primitive cells are prokaryotic cells. Now, why they are labeled as primitive? These cell type includes the monerons. What are monerons? Bacteria-like organisms. These organisms are different than we are, or they are different from the type of cells that we are made up of. These prokaryotics are unicellular. They do not have membrane bound cell organelles. Cell organelles are substructures of a cell that helps the cell to survive and to perform all its necessary functions, similar to our organs. If our body is a cell, our organs are the organelles. Similarly, prokaryotic cells do not have membrane bound organelles, which we will come back in a later section. These prokaryotic cells have a covering known as capsule or a wall, but unlike the plant cell wall, they are not made up of cellulose. So we can say acellulosic cell wall or covering. They do not have a nucleus. Their genetic material, DNA or RNA, is scattered throughout the cytoplasm in a tangled mess. We call it as nucleoid. So, nucleoid present. Another thing, they have a different type of ribosome. They have a 70S ribosome. This 70S ribosome is made up of two subunits, 50S plus 30S. You may think 50 and 30 adds up to 70, but no. Ribosomes, they appear as this. This is one subunit, this is another subunit. They work together to synthesize proteins. Since they work together, so we give them an additive function. Like in mathematics, if something adds up to create a new number, we add it, we include a plus sign here also. Since they are working together, we are including a plus sign, indicating an additive word or function. Now, the larger is 50S, the smaller is 30S. Now, what is this S? This S is a unit of sedimentation known as the Swedberg unit. So, these are the features of prokaryotes.